Alright guys, starting with task 2, what I'll do is in this video I'll do all the tasks in one go, and the first video was just an introduction of what I'm intending to do. So we have in total 4 tasks here, and then we are on 2. We did the task 1 on in part 1. Again guys, very simple task, just create groups and test our groups. So what we'll do is, as you can see on the screen, this task is assigned versus dynamic AD groups, and obviously for this task guys, you have to have a P2 license, which is a free trial. You can, if you have a Azure subscription and you have a Azure portal login and you're using free trial, because most people use free trial to learn, and then in production only you will find proper Azure tenants and everything, but at home you have to buy, you have to get subscribed to Azure portal with a credit card. It's free, and then you can do free stuff. I'll try to do anything which is free in this lab. So guys, to do this lab, all you have to do is go to your Azure portal, and you have to go to Active Directory, which is in here. Active Directory. Sorry guys, if I say Active Directory, it's mostly Azure Active Directory. It's an AAD rather than an AD, so two different things. Alright, in AD, when you go to license, when you go to licenses, and I have a P2 license already, so I go to all products, and you can see I have a P2 license there. And what you have to do is go back to overview. You have to go there, get a free trial, register yourself, and remember to go through the labs. And in the last part of the lab, there is a task 5, which I'll leave with you guys. I'll not be doing that. I'll clean up my resources, because if we do labs, we don't want to get charged with it, and labs are mostly not interdependent of each other. So there are actually many labs, not this. If you go back to the labs, you can see it's all Azure 104 related labs there. So they're not mostly related to each other. It's just that one lab is in itself related to itself. So I hope that's making sense. So you don't have to create resources and keep them. You have to clean them. The guys here, the contributors, made sure the labs are made in a way so you can practice and then clean up the labs. Alright, so going back to licenses, you have to get a P2 license. Coming back to the lab, so once you have your P2 license, what you have to do is, first task, you have to create a group called this Contoso IT Cloud Administrator, add a dynamic query and job, which is job title equals to cloud admin, because we want this group to be dynamic, so we have to add a dynamic query. And then again we'll create a second group, which will be Contoso IT System Administrator, and again we have to add a dynamic query because it's a dynamic group. Job title will be Systems Administrator. And then last but not the least, you have to create a group, Contoso IT Lab Administrator, but guys, this time it will be an assigned group. And then you add these two groups from the above. So you have to add this group in here and one also in here. So this third group, which will be Contoso IT Lab Administrator, will have 2 groups plus so I'll explain what's plus in it later, but so once we create this groups, we create an assigned group, add these 2 groups, so 3 parts, and then we'll see. So once we are done with these groups, guys, you remember we created these people, user 1 and user 2 in lab 1. So once we create the group, this users these users should automatically be added to a dynamic group, because it's meant to be targeting job title. And once Azure finds out that these people are system administrators and cloud administrator, it will dynamically add itself to the group. All right, I hope I'm making sense. I'll get back to the lab and I'll do step by step with you, and we'll continue with that. All right. Okay, now going to task 2 here. All right. So as I mentioned, guys, you have to go through these instructions. They're pretty clear. And then it's asking us to create a group here. So let's start that. Go back. And then we'll go to our AAD. We'll go to groups and new group. So you can see there's already in group, which is which has nothing actually to do with this lab, but I'll just follow our lab in here. All right, so it's asking the type. Group type will be security, and then that's the group name. Group description. And remember, guys, membership is dynamic user, not device, dynamic user. And what does it say? If membership type drop down list is grayed out, we have to wait a few minutes. And let's see, so we look good here, and then we have to click on add dynamic query. Like, what's the purpose of this group? How does this group know it's dynamic? So this defines how it's a dynamic group. All right, and then yep, so this is what we get. So we have to choose a property. Let's see, what does it say? So property job title equal cloud administrator. So job title equals cloud administrator. Job title equals cloud administrator. All right. So yeah, that's it. We have to, so you can see the syntax here, user dot job title equals cloud administrator. Save that and create. And I'll just, on the top I've got a notification that it's already done, so I'll hit refresh. It takes a while for it to show up. There we go, guys. We can see it's a dynamic group here. All right, and let's get back. And that's our second group, guys. Remember the second group, Contoso IT System Administrator. All right, so same thing, guys. We'll have click on new group, security, just copy and paste. The good thing of this lab is that if you're creating a logical map in your mind and you're doing things alongside with the map, with the lab, and you're studying, also you study theory, you have seen some videos, you have seen maybe some nuggets, or lynda.com, or you're following Pluralsight or Udemy. It's always good to see those guys explaining what's the theory, and then reading white pages, and then doing the lab as well alongside with it. And I'll add the group description there, and membership type will be dynamic user again, and then obviously we'll add a dynamic query because group 2 is also dynamic. All right, so job title equals so this group is system administrator, so the name is Contoso IT system administrator, but the job title is system administrator. Alright, I'll just wait. It takes a while, few seconds for it to show save there, otherwise it's grayed out. You can see the syntax. We'll just save, and then this becomes edit dynamic query. That means we're good. I'll just hit create, and we'll wait for this to also show up. I've got the notification on the top right in the notification bar, so it should show up now. So here we go, guys. Two groups, dynamic groups, and very easy. All right, let's see what point 15 says. Back on the groups, all groups played of the Azure AD tenant, create a new group, and this will be the new group. So remember, guys, third group is an assigned group, will not be a dynamic group. We want to keep it that way. I'll show you that why we need that in task 3. So assigned, so nothing fancy there, and we'll go back to point 17. So nothing fancy, just assigned a group, guys, third group here. All right, and then just hit create. So third group hopefully is created, and point number 17 says from add members blade, inside this group we have to now add 2 groups. So it's like we have to nest these groups. These group will be nested groups in Contoso IT Lab Administrator. We want this to be assigned membership, not dynamic. Alright, let's refresh in here. Here we go. So we have got one assigned group. We'll go into that and then follow on from point number 17. So we have to add these 2 groups now to our assigned group. Members, add members. We have to search for our member. Alright, guys, so we add, as per the lab, we add IT Cloud Administrator first. So IT Cloud Administrator, I select that, and it's added. So don't worry about why it's not showing. With Azure portal, you have to do refresh a lot. You have to wait sometimes for your changes to be reflected. And again, I'll add member. So we have to add IT system administrator to the third group, which should be in here. Yep. And then select. All right, let's see what we have in our IT lab administrators now. I'll keep on hitting refresh because I should see 2 groups now in our third group. Here we go, guys, and let's see what we see in these 2 groups, because these are dynamic groups. So not from here, we'll go back to groups and then we'll go to our dynamic groups now. Go into members. See, our Azure user 1 is already dynamically added to our IT Cloud Administrators group, and then you know that, guys, why? Because it matches the job title, and then in the dynamic query, so job title is Cloud Administrator, so it matches that, and adds user 1 to the group. And let's check what's the position of next dynamic group. Let's have a look. Members, user 2. Alright, guys, that's our task 2 done pretty quick. and hopefully this will give you an overview of users and groups. And we have to remember that we are still doing identities. So I'll see you guys in task 3 now. It starts from here after point 19. All right, let's do task number 3. Alright guys, we are ready for task number 3, just creating a new Azure AD tenant for our lab. This tenant will be created, and then I'll show you what's the purpose of it. It's just for the lab, so we have a new tenant, and this user, when we create it under the new tenant, will act as an external user, and then this way we can add it to our original tenant as a guest user. So from now on we are just learning about guest user, and then we have already learned about dynamic and assigned groups, and then creating users. All right, let's get on with it. Okay, the lab wants us to go to the Azure AD, and then wants us to create a tenant in there. Okay. Alright, I'm already in my default directory, but I'll show you how I went there. Azure Active Directory and manage tenants. This is our default tenant, and then it's wanting us to create, and we'll click on create. So what type of tenant do you want? And then we want Azure Active Directory. That's good. And then it says configuration, organization name, initial domain name, everything, and then we should be able to proceed. So alright, so I'll go to next configuration. Let's see what the lab wants us to do. Organization name, Contoso Lab, and then we have to have a unique name in here, so I'll just name it Cloud, my YouTube channel name, and then United States. Alright, next is review plus create. It wants us to review it now, so that's our domain name now, and it's another new tenant, so we'll just hit on create, and that's good. It's wanting us to do security check, that are you sure you want to create a tenant and you're not a robot, someone has not intruded and tried to create a tenant. So it wants us to check it's not a robot, and I'll just hit submit, and it's actually is creating our tenant, and all we have to do is just wait. In the meanwhile, I'll just go back to the lab, and then it says in the last display the blade of the newly created AAD by clicking on click here to navigate, and we'll have a look what's going on. Alright, let's go and hit our directories plus subscriptions. This is my I can see my default directory, but I'm waiting on Azure to be refreshed, and then see if we were able to create a new tenant or not. Alright guys, I can see my Contoso lab tenant here. That's the end of task 3, and now we'll move on to task 4. Alright guys, task 4 is all about creating the user in here, and so this user, and then adding that user as a guest to our original default tenant. This is a new tenant, and then so for this group, which was, if you remember, an assigned group, it'll have these 2 people in here. So literally everyone who is a system administrator and then is part of this group, or a cloud administrator, and so that will have 2 internal groups plus an external guest under this group, which is an assigned group. Alright, let's get back to our lab, task 4, and then if you want, you can read the instructions in there. I'll just straight away go to our new tenant, and then I'll create a user in there. Alright, so for this we have to obviously switch our directories, and let me do that. Let me do a refresh because I can't see my new directory. So actually it's under the tab of all directories, it's not under favorites. So I was actually looking my new tenant under favorites. The portal can be tricky sometimes, guys. It keeps on changing. So I'll go to all directories under my subscriptions, and then so we have to go to other directory, which is Contoso Labs. See guys, it says switch in there. I'll just click on that, and this takes me to my new tenant. We'll just wait for it, and then I'll have to create this user once I'm in. Alright, so just to check if I'm in the right directory, let me see how it shows current directory. That's good. And let me put my appearance to docked so that we can see AD on the left, Azure AD on the left. So I'll go to Azure AD, and I'll wait for it to open up. Users, so and then create a new user. Alright, so that will be user 1 but 01B. So add username and name, and then you have to select a password. Ignore other fields for now. And this will not be a dynamic user added to a dynamic group, so it will not be a user adding to be added to a dynamic group. Alright, so nothing else is required. Hopefully, I think I did not put the job title, which should be, if you scroll down in here, and department is IT, just making sure. Yeah, and then see how the lab wants us to open this user up, and then add the, see how it says here, so you have to add the UPN, copy the UPN, and let's see. So now we have to switch back to our original directory. We'll go back to our directories plus subscription button, and we'll switch back again to our default Azure Active Directory. Let's go to AAD and let's see what the lab wants us to do. So switch back to your original directory, and then we'll have to create a new guest user in there. So I'm already in my AAD, so I'll go users, new user, and this time we have to invite a user. And then put the name. Before that, before we copy the name, I'll add the UPN first, and then I'll copy the name. Please accept the invite. Regards, your might. All right, and then obviously it wants us to add United States and lab administrator, and department is IT. So region United States, job title department IT, and then click invite. And then guys, last but not the least, so we have created our user, and then all we have to do is we have to add that user now in the group named lab administrator. This is what our lab wants us to do. So we have to go to users played again, which I am, and I have to see where is my user. So here it is on the bottom. I have my guest user. I'll go to my guest user, and then it wants us to let's have a look. All right, go to groups, add membership, and then see how dynamic groups are not allowing me to add the guest user to the groups, which leaves us with only option. That means our lab is successful here, guys. So add him and select, and that's it. So our user 3, which is actually not user 3 in terms of the name, our user B, so 01B from new tenant, has been added to this group and can now actually work in default Azure AD tenant as a lab administrator. He is a system administrator, but he's part of the group named lab administrator now. I hope this makes sense, guys. And then just to finish off, what I would say is, even if I'm not able to explain you what happened in totality, you have to just follow this lab. It's very good, and then I hope I have been very informative. Otherwise, you can just go into the HTML page in here, HTTPS, and then HTTPS page. You can go to this web page, and then you can actually study from there. All you have to do is now clean up the resources, guys. I'll leave that with you. Don't forget to do that, because this lab is okay, but going further, there will be labs where you have to create resources such as VMs, storage accounts, etc. So you will be charged by Microsoft. So don't forget to actually delete everything. I'll see you in next video, guys. Thank you for watching. Bye.